The path to healing. Weeks passed. The scandal filled tabloids, but Ethan ignored them. Instead, he focused on rebuilding, not his company, but himself. He donated millions to scholarships for kids from broken homes. He funded shelters for women and children escaping manipulation and abuse. He spent time in places where no one cared who he was, teaching financial literacy, mentoring young entrepreneurs who just needed someone to believe in them. One day, he returned to the diner. The waitress, Maya, was there again, her daughter coloring in a corner. "You came back," she said, surprised. He smiled. "You reminded me that kindness still exists. I thought I'd return the favor." He handed her an envelope, a scholarship fund in her daughter's name. Tears welled in her eyes. "I can't accept this." "You already did," he said gently. "The moment you gave me hope when I'd lost mine." The letter. Months later, Ethan received a letter, elegant handwriting, familiar perfume. It was from Clara. "Ethan. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't even deserve your memory. I thought I was in control, but I lost myself chasing a life that never belonged to me. You were the only real thing I ever had. I heard what you've been doing, helping people, giving back. Maybe that's how love was meant to live on, not between us, but through what it taught you. I'm sorry." He folded the letter carefully, placed it in his drawer, and whispered, "So am I." But he smiled, not bitterly, but peacefully. Because for the first time, the silence inside him didn't hurt. The final scene. A year later, on a quiet morning by the ocean, Ethan stood barefoot in the sand, watching the sunrise. The same ocean that witnessed his heartbreak now shimmered with light. He wasn't thinking about the past anymore. He was thinking about the people he'd helped, the lives he'd touched, the warmth he'd found in giving rather than having. Love hadn't broken him. It had rebuilt him. Sometimes, he realized, the universe doesn't take things away to punish us, it removes them to clear space for the truth. He smiled at the horizon and whispered to the wind. "Thank you for the pain. It showed me who I am." The waves carried his words away, but in his heart, they echoed forever. Moral. Love may shatter your heart, but it can never destroy your soul. When betrayal rips away the illusion, what remains is the unshakable truth of who you are, stronger, wiser, and free. Because sometimes, the most powerful kind of love, is the one you finally give to yourself. Broken heart sparkles. The weight of truth. He didn't storm out. He didn't yell. That wasn't Ethan. Instead, he walked to the balcony overlooking the ocean. The sun had begun to dip below the horizon, staining the waves gold. He had built empires, from a single laptop in a one-bedroom apartment to skyscrapers bearing his name. He'd learned to read markets, decode people, predict patterns. But love had blinded him. His mother once told him, the cruelest betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those you defend to your last breath. He understood that now. The door opened again, Clara's voice behind him, sweet and warm. "There you are," she said, slipping her arms around his shoulders. "Everyone's waiting. Are you nervous?" He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "A little." She laughed softly. "You, nervous? The great Ethan Hale." He turned to face her. "Tell me something, Clara." "Why me?" She blinked. "What do you mean? Why did you say yes to me?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second, with something unreadable. "Because I love you, of course. Even if there were no mansions, no private jets, no fortune," he pressed gently. Her lips parted, but words didn't come. And that silence told him more than any confession could. The moment before the ceremony. The wedding coordinator burst in. "Mr. Hale. We're ready. The guests are seated." Ethan nodded calmly. "Tell them I'll be right there." He turned back to Clara. Let's give them a show, shall we? She smiled in relief, mistaking his composure for acceptance. That's my Ethan. They walked down the corridor together, hand in hand, her fingers cold, his grip steady. Cameras flashed as they reached the grand ballroom draped in white roses. 1,000 eyes turned toward them. As the orchestra played, Clara glided toward the altar, radiant in a gown worth more than most people's homes. Ethan followed, his heart a battlefield of love and grief. When the officiant asked, "Do you take this woman?" Ethan looked into her eyes, and saw everything: beauty, ambition, deceit. And he said softly, "I'm sorry." The room fell silent. Clara's smile faltered. "I can't," he said clearly. "Not today. Not when love isn't real." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras stopped flashing. He turned to the guests, voice trembling but strong. "I thought love meant trust. I thought it meant giving everything you are to someone who holds your heart gently. But sometimes love means walking away, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself." He placed the ring on the altar, nodded to Clara, whose face burned red with shock, and walked out. Minutes before the wedding, the billionaire heard his bride-to-be's betrayal. The mansion shimmered with lights brighter than any star outside. Laughter echoed down the marble halls, champagne glasses clinked, and 100 guests waited for the wedding of the decade, the union of Ethan Hale, the self-made billionaire, and Clara Voss, the woman everyone believed was his forever. But 10 minutes before the ceremony, Ethan's world stopped turning. He stood alone in his dressing suite, adjusting the cufflinks his late mother had given him, engraved with the words, "Love and Truth." His reflection looked perfect, the black tuxedo tailored to perfection, the calm eyes of a man about to make the most important promise of his life. Yet inside, he felt uneasy. A storm brewed somewhere deep in his chest, a whisper that something was off. The knock on his door came gently. "Sir," said Daniel, his longtime assistant, stepping in with hesitation. "There's something you might need to hear." Ethan frowned. "Now. We start in 10 minutes. Daniel swallowed. "It's about Miss Voss." The name alone made Ethan's heart slow. "What about her?" Daniel's voice trembled. "I wasn't going to say anything, but I overheard her in the garden. She was on the phone. I thought she was speaking to her father, but," he hesitated. "She said, 'Once it's done, we'll move the money quietly. He'll never know.'" The world blurred for a moment. The hum of the orchestra downstairs, the distant murmur of guests, all faded into a hollow silence. "Are you sure?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded. "I recorded part of it. I didn't mean to spy, sir, but it didn't sound right." He handed over his phone. Ethan pressed play. Through the static came Clara's unmistakable voice, soft, composed, and cruelly casual. "Yes, the transfer should go through once we're married. No prenup, no trace. He trusts me completely." And then laughter. Her laughter, the same laugh that once melted his exhaustion after endless nights of work. Ethan stood frozen, his chest tightening until he could barely breathe. Every memory, every dinner, every promise, every whispered "I love you," cracked like fragile glass underfoot.